Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I'm Peter, and I'm going to be talking about Unbelievable, Episode 4, and full spoilers for the episode, of course, as always. So, the case goes forward, the detectives go to the FBI to see what help they can get there. And we have this interesting meeting with the agent in that Grace makes a point of not having them tell him that they think it might be a cop. He understands that they're not, there probably is. He's aware of it. He's aware that they're choosing not to tell him, but he makes some sort of presumptions on his own. He does agree to fast track some DNA stuff and so on and so on, but he basically suggests that the time frame between the victims is speeding up. He's getting more confident and they're getting closer and closer in separation, and also the escalation of the violent element, the weapon that he's threatening the victims with, which actually stands to reason given that if Marie is the first or close to the first victim, then he didn't even use a gun in that case. He used a knife, which came from the house itself, whereas now he's bringing a gun to the crimes. And so we actually have seen evidence of this escalation, and so that's ongoing. And of course there's a lot of investigative stuff in this. It kind of breaks down into sort of three chunks in my mind. There's the FBI stuff at the start, and then they're looking into what cops have a record of sexual assault, which ones they can then rule out based on race, height, physical description, blah, 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 blah. And they get to one, but the one that's left has been in prison, and therefore there you go. But they're also looking at the possibility that there's a correlation between crimes like this and domestic abuse. So they want to look at what cops have been suspected of that or accused of that. But the problem is that because they're cops, it doesn't go through the regular police record. It goes through internal affairs and the personnel files, which they can get access to. So that's posed up at this point in the episode. We do see a scene with Grace and her husband where she tries to suggest that he get the files for her, which he adamantly says, no, that's not happening. There's a reason why it's against the rules. I can't just do it because you're asking me to. And he's right to say that. That is the rule. But she gets pissed at him anyway. She's getting frustrated. I mean, I think the end of this episode for both detectives was very much about how frustrated they are. The fact that Grace is asking this is maybe going across a bit of a line. Karen likewise has a scene at the end which is very well done, and that she's just on the phone to the husband. She's on her way home, and there's a little bit of fear because she's running late and he's already left the house, and the kids are left on their own, kind of thing, which just plays a kind of on the idea of leaving people in the house alone. But she sees a white truck, which is kind of similar, and I'm jumping ahead to this because I naturally got there on the conversation. But she hangs up the phone and she pulls over this truck, puts her siren on, pulls over the truck, and she draws her weapon. She goes towards the truck thinking it might be the most dangerous person ever. And I actually thought, obviously I didn't think this was going to be the rapist. I thought this was going to be a woman. It was my guess. I thought it was going to be she gets up to because she didn't see who was driving, she just saw the truck, and I thought she was going to get up to, she yells, roll down your window. She goes up. I thought she was going to see a woman, and instead it's actually an old black man. And obviously immediately we know it's not the person, because we've had a pretty consistent description of a 6 foot youngish white man, right? But this immediately feels very uncomfortable because she realized what she's just done, and obviously she didn't see who was driving, but the old man is clearly going to assume he's been profiled. That's what it feels like. It feels very awkward and uncomfortable, and Karen knows what it looks like and what it feels like. And you can see that on her face when she walks back. She just kind of quickly has to say, sorry, my mistake. Because he asks why he's been pulled over, and she almost goes to give some bullshit reason, oh, did you know that you're, as if she's going to talk about his tail light or something, and she just says, sorry, my mistake, and walks away. And we know that it was an innocent enough mistake in the sense that she wasn't profiling anyone, but it doesn't change the fact that the way she approached this situation was on this, it's not even a hunch, it's the slimmest reason possible. The way she approached this vehicle with her gun out, as if this might be the most dangerous person ever, was a leap. It was a leap where she was going beyond kind of procedure, and she's kind of acting out because she's getting I don't want to say desperate, but getting anxious to catch the guy. So it's a really great scene of showing just where she is mentally, and that she is kind of overstepping some lines a little bit, even though she's typically a very kind of safe cop in that sense. We see it throughout the episode, the way she talks to people. They they're learning about other kids. Obviously, one of the first things that happens in the episode is that Grace and Karen go to see the victim that we learned about. The one they found via all the phone calls last episode, and it's this sort of older woman who actually looks after a frat house and doesn't live there, as we find out, because Grace makes a point of asking that, but she likes keeping busy and yada yada yada. But they ask her some stuff, and it's basically like, we're not going to ask all the details because we've read the file, we know the gist of what happened, but we're going to ask if there's anything else you've thought of or remember. And she talks about him being almost gentle and polite. And they kind of confirm to her that other victims have said that as well, that this is actually corroborating other people's accounts. And she says, she almost says that makes her feel, and obviously the word she was not going to say was better. That doesn't apply here. She doesn't have words for it, but it lets her know that she's not just being crazy to think that he was oddly being kind of gentle. Like, she's very conflicted about how she feels. Understandably, it goes back to what we said in the first episode about how there's a range of reactions and the way people process this. Is that very needle in a haystack to find two people who'll react the exact same way. Everyone processes it differently, and yeah, so very, very, very interesting scene on its own. We don't dwell on it too much because at this point we've got victims that we've spent a lot of time with. Marie more than anyone. Obviously, we spent some time with the victim from episode 2, Amber, so we're spending less and less time the more we're learning about some of these people, and we get a little bit from there. And then obviously the other big thing is that the tech cop, I don't know her name, there's a lot of but she's always kind of been there on Karen's team, and she's there in the other scene when they're looking at the potential police officers who could be behind this, but she's kind of schmoozing with other precincts, people in similar positions in the other precincts. The other cop there who works with, basically the same position, the older woman who works with Grace, and they're schmoozing and just sharing details with these other analysts, and they all kind of offer up details. Oh, we had this thing, like a year ago where there was someone spotted watching. The victim did see a face. Nothing happened because he was spotted, spying. But then we had another one that was a straight up attempted rape. Someone did break in the house, and the girl only got away from him by throwing herself out the window, which was a second story window, and shattering her pelvis. But she survived, and it's this really sort of dark beat at the end of the scene where because they're playing pool as they're sharing this information, and she says, "Well, at least she didn't get raped." That was kind of the bittersweet point at the end of the scene. Yeah, she only had to throw herself out of a window to avoid it. But so the detectives go to see this girl, and they find that she's not there. Her mother's actually there, looking after her cat or something like that, and she's very confrontational with both Grace and Karen because she felt like her daughter was ignored at the time. It was basically, not really looked into. She felt like there was no follow-up. The detective didn't really try to actually do anything. It was like, sure, she's got a shattered pelvis, but nothing actually happened. There was a very relaxed attitude about it from what it sounds like. And it takes a lot of convincing. Grace and Karen are really trying to convince her that they really care and that they're here to do something. And what actually kind of cinches a little bit of peace and cooperation, because she doesn't really want, because when they ask, when is she back? What time is it tomorrow? She's not really willing to give an answer. And when she finally does say something very kind of vague sounding, after she's released from this, I want to say spirit. I didn't catch. I don't remember the exact line, but basically she's at a religious ceremony of some kind. Her religion. She's a damn it! It wasn't monk. It was something like monk. I've never heard of this thing, right? Whatever this was, I have never heard of anyone practicing this, and clearly Grace hasn't either. Because I was with Grace in this scene. She has no idea what this woman is talking about. I had no idea what this woman was talking about. Luckily, Karen did know what was going on, and by kind of acknowledging and accepting the importance of what she was going through and using some of the same sort of language back at her, it seemed to make her more cooperative. So, it was kind of showing a strength from Karen where Grace maybe lacked, because there's all these little moments throughout where Grace points out that something's in her gut, and Karen's like, well, I guess my gut's still developing. I was only a detective for the last 6 years, and she's like, oh, you must have been a baby. There's a lot of moments like that, or the moment where Karen says she's happy that the alerts went out, these flyers warning people to lock their doors and things, and Grace is kind of really cynical about it and says, no, the people who read this and care are the ones who already locked their doors and set their alarms. It's the people who glance at this and just sort of shrug and say, oh, that's a shame, but don't take any precautions, that are going to be the victims, and they're the ones that are going to be victimized anyway. So she has a very cynical outlook, and it feels like even though there's definitely a camaraderie kind of forming, there is kind of this dual sort of pull of the rope happening when it comes to certain attitudes and the way things are progressing. And it does lead to another scene in the episode, of course, where someone comes in, having seen these flyers, and to report someone that he knows that has been accused of this in the past. And, Karen's very unforgiving talking to this guy, because the guy refuses to use the words, he refuses to say rape, because even when she says, he's been accused of raping someone, he says, oh, I never said that. And she's like, no, you said forced to have sex with. That's rape. Like that, call it what it is. And she's, and he's kind of a weasel, because he talks about how he clearly saw him at a party take someone who was unconscious up to his room. It was very implied what it was for, and he ultimately just felt uncomfortable and left. And it's hard not to feel a little like judge him a little bit in that moment, and you certainly feel like she is as well. Like there's a lot going on here in terms of the body language that Karen's given off in the scene. And it happens again because then they bring in the guy. There's this dude who he's talking about, and he is very sure of himself, very kind of douchebaggy about, oh, that thing a couple of years ago got thrown out, it didn't happen, it was all a lie. And again, he refuses to actually say what it was he was accused of. He keeps saying, oh, the girl was crazy, and the girl said this, and the girl did this, but he never actually says what she actually accused him of. He's very much dancing around the words. And she keeps asking him questions, and then when he gets really agitated and basically says, last time my dad was going to sue you, you blah, 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 she's just straight up asked for alibi. She's like, hey, this time and place, and he thinks it's ridiculous because it's like 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. one of them, and he's like, this is ridiculous. Luckily for him, he does have an ironclad alibi for one of the dates. He was at a hotel with his parents somewhere else, and that can be corroborated. So it has that. But the other big detail with him is that it looked like in one of the photographs that they got on Facebook from the first guy's account, he had what looked like maybe a birthmark on his leg, which maybe could match. But it's not a great photo. It's not a great angle of it or whatever. And Amber can't tell if it's the same. I mean, she's having a bad time as well. Her boyfriends went back home, but her friends are trying to keep her spirits up and by taking her out and doing things like that. I will say she did have a line here that I really liked, where Karen asks, "Are you getting, are you sleeping and eating okay?" And Amber says, "I'm a student. I never sleep or eat okay." That made me. That was a little chuckle line because there's some truth to that, but. And I was a student who didn't drink. Like I've never drank, and I still didn't sleep okay. I wasn't a party person, but I still didn't sleep okay because that's just who I am. I still don't sleep okay. Let's be honest. I'm a weirdo. But so she immediately crosses out his face. It's like as much as because we see his leg. She makes him show his leg, and it's a tattoo of like a tree or something like that. It's not a birthmark, and. Yeah, so those are kind of the places. So we're going through these paces of like following the breadcrumb trail. So we have this new victim. A victim in the sense that it was an attempted rape. But you know what I mean? Like someone who was clearly on his path. And there's a point where they have all the new locations up in the map. As assuming that this person who tried, and it fits the description of the mask and things like that. This attempted victim. That's not the right phrase, but you know what I mean. Like when they put that on the map with the other three, it does make a clear line on the map. As to the progression of these crimes, assuming they were in order, because they never actually said that. I suppose I'll say that, but yeah. So that was the detective stuff in the episode. Enjoyable yet again. I like them peeling back at the layers. The chemistry between the two leads is once again very good. I think what I really like about, obviously Toni Collette's very good, and she has very good banter, especially when she's talking to the FBI guy. There's a lot of little sort of wisecracks that come out. There's a sort of quid pro quo going on, which is really nice. I think Merritt Wever is a really interesting actress. Between this and Godless, which was an all Netflix limited series, which I do recommend if you like a good western, is she's very different to a lot of other actors. The way she carries herself, she's a very different type of actress. She's not the supermodel, and what I mean by that is that she comes across just her body type, and this is not to in any way talk negatively about her body type, but her body type, the way she carries herself is different to what most actors do. Because typically when you think of an actress, you think of a very specific type of image and build, and I think Merritt Wever is a very interesting actor because she's different from all those things. And almost everything I see her in, she feels like a more unique, real feeling person. She feels like a real person in everything I see her in because she doesn't come across like just some random Hollywood star. And I mean that as a compliment. I really do. Like, she comes across as someone who is flawed, someone who is like tough, but someone who is not just a Hollywood actor trying to pretend to be those things. And it's, there's an honesty to her. There's an honesty to her which I think really comes across. So, and I think pairing her up with someone like Toni Collette really gives a nice contrast to their pairings. So I'm into that stuff a lot in this show. So yeah, the Marie stuff, which basically boils down to two extended sequences. The first of which is she comes to the courthouse to see about her citation, and she's saying, "Hey, I got this a couple of weeks ago. It said that there'd be further instructions, but there never were any. So I came to see if." Like what I should do. And it turns out that her court date was supposed to be the day before, and there's a warrant out for her arrest. And it turns out that they sent the court date letter to her old address, which she's not lived at in 5 years, in a different city. And the woman who works here gets that cleared up, gets rid of the warrant, and it's like, hey, so your new date's this afternoon, you just have to go this to your lawyer. And then obviously we know where this is going. Marie's like, hey, I don't have a lawyer. So she chases down this public defender, and despite the fact, and again, the show does manage to put a little bit of levity in some places where it kind of makes sense, where he's adamantly saying, no, I can't do it, no, I've got too many cases, no, I'm not doing it. And even once the woman leaves, he looks Marie then and says, I'm sorry, I just can't. And then it cuts to him looking over a case with her in his office. So a little bit of levity, a little ironic cut there, which is nice. But yeah, and but the big thing he points out here, though, is that it's weird. This is strange that they're pursuing this because they don't usually make a point of actually trying to charge these false reports. It's not worth their time, typically. They've got better things to do, which does certainly suggest that someone wants to make an example of Marie, or someone's being vindictive about it. Could it even be the culprit? If he is a police officer, as the culprit behind this in some way. I mean, that's a bit of a reach, admittedly, but I'm throwing it out there just in case it turns out to be the case. I want it on paper that I at least thought of it. But and I know it's based on a true story, so it's weird sort of predicting and guessing like this, but I don't want to look it up. I'll discover the story through the show. But he's like, okay, you've got another date in a month. She pleads not guilty. Doesn't say it herself at first, but she does ask the question, hey, I was charged with a false report, and you just made me plead not guilty. Isn't that also another kind of false report? And he makes it clear that if she'd just said guilty, she'd have went to prison for a year probably, been fined $5,000, and that would just be it. Case closed. But by pleading not guilty, it gives him time to work out a deal with the DA and plea and things like that, and maybe get her a better deal. And she's very thankful, and he, even though he's very busy and he's very kind of wanting to go and get on with these other cases, he does seem quite genuine. Whether he tries to, he is really making an effort to be as nice and kind of calm with her as possible, and sort of make it clear exactly how it's working. So he's clearly very busy, and it's not the highest priority he has, but he's doing his best. But by the looks of it, he seems like a decent enough dude. And then later on, of course, she's at Colleen's, and they're basically trying to convince her that there's no way this could happen. I almost felt bad for thinking that, when Colleen said, "Oh, this will definitely not happen," the fact that they're saying there's might be a deal on the table, like it's not going to happen. I was almost expecting another ironic, dramatic cut to the judge saying guilty, sentenced to whatever. But I do actually worry that this is going to lead to her being punished, possibly going to jail, and because I know people vindicate in the comments that they know what the story is and they're infuriated by it. And I can't think of something that's more infuriating than her actually going to prison and serving time for this, false report and quotations. So, but the big interesting thing that happens during this scene, and I keep in mind this is back in 2008, or I assume it's still 2008. Maybe it's early 2009 now, but presumably still 2008. There's a news report comes on, and it's of a case that sounds exactly like hers. Someone was raped in their house, describes something that sounds very similar, and Colleen sees this, and obviously they've been thinking she's made this false report, and you made this mistake, we're here to help you, kind of thing. But obviously hearing this, that someone else has had the exact same thing happen, makes Colleen second guess it and go, was this real? Were you attacked? And kind of very, just holds her and kind of very sternly makes it clear that if something actually happened, we have to go and explain it to the police, which is exactly what happened with the others at the apartment complex. The not the therapist, you know what I'm talking about. But she, this is the thing. So everything Colleen says is right, and you understand exactly why she's saying it, because there are other victims, and that providing the information to go alongside this case would certainly help, especially in the context of what we are doing in the present day, or not present day, but the 2011 story, right, with the detectives. The idea that they couldn't link all these cases until now by luck. If Marie had come forward when this case was announced on the news, fairly soon, relatively soon after hers, maybe the idea that this is one person moving through counties or towns or districts would have been established much earlier, and maybe would have caught the person sooner. So there is kind of an objective kind of unfortunate outcome of Marie's choice here. However, I think with Marie, you can't blame her too much, because at this point in the show, at this point in the story, she is in such a tangled web with the police and the system that either decision she's going to make is going to be a problem. Because she was essentially railroaded into making the claim that her first report was false, coming back now, what she already tried to do once, led to more threats, it led to more railroading, it made more problems. And of course she does try to, she has a moment where she considers anonymously calling the tip line. And she picks up the phone, but she decides not to do it. And she just sort of pulls her covers over her head and just sort of lies there instead. And again, the strict moral choice in this moment is absolutely to come forward. It is. There's no denying that. Because it is going to help potential people who might be victims. It is going to maybe help solve the case quicker. But I don't think you can actually just dig your heels in and say that Marie is being, selfish or being anything other than just scared. Because at this point, she has a right to feel scared. And the tangled web she has with the police now is put her in such a position where nothing feels like a safe option. And she's been beaten down by it. And it's a really, really sad story. It's really, this is the part of the episode where you're probably your most angriest, if anything, is that she can't even feel comfortable coming forward in this way now because of what they've already put her through. So, yeah, that's episode 4. As always, not a cheery show. It is a very... Obviously, I mean, it's definitely been easier to watch from episode 2 onwards, because we've had the detectives who have a little bit of levity occasionally and do have more kind of range, whereas Marie's story is typically very soul-crushing throughout. But it is obviously still a very kind of, intense watch. The subject is dealing with, of course, leads to a lot of very uncomfortable moments and conversations. But all of it is handled very well with the direction, and like I say, the performances especially have been very, very good, and I am looking forward to episode 5. So yeah, we're halfway through. There's 8 episodes total. This is halfway through. I'm excited to see where it goes next. So let me know what you think of the episode in the comments below. Like and subscribe, all that stuff. You can get me on the Twitters at mailed_fuzz for channel updates. You get me specifically on Twitter at Wibble89 for all my rambles. You can, of course, go to patreon.com/mailfuzztv and support everything we do for as little as $1 per month. And that $1 will get you some bonus stuff, and higher tiers will get you other stuff too. So go and have a look and see if you fancy any of that, and just help keep all the content coming. You can support us always though, such as rating us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts or other such podcast apps. It helps us be recommended out more people will find us, that kind of thing. But that's us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. I always appreciate it. Keep watching TV, guys. Have you got any vanilla?